I would hope that everybody's had a chance to read the minutes of the meeting. And if not, yes, Jack.
Yep, I've had a chance, and I want to just suggest an edit. So in the under the section of town school budgets, the second paragraph says Jack Kelly suggested putting a cap on spending. That's not exactly right. That was the discussion about the narratives, and was there a level of spending on the narratives where you could just keep it the same versus the discussion about moving to itemization. And I had suggested, is there just a level of spending that we could put a cap on before we would require moving away from the old narrative? I didn't suggest a spending cap.
Okay.
I think that's a great idea, though.
So more definition to
Yes, it was associated with if we were going to delineate between a bucket of spending where you just pull things into a typical narrative versus the request was, to break the narratives out into more line item definitions so that you could time series the spend over a greater period of time. And there was some discussion of, is there a level that you break it down, and that got kind of bogged down. I said, can we suggest a cap on that level of spending for the bucket? Right. It wasn't just the way it reads. I suggested just a cap on spending arbitrarily.
Okay. The only other one I would make just at the top where for the approval of the minutes, it should be 9-0-1 for Karen Thirst. She abstained. It looks like she voted against it.
Okay.
I have two
Go
edits. First one is after the beginning of the town school budgets on page 1, right here, that we didn't have, I think we should have had something in there, because I brought it up, that the budget committee sets the tempo, not the town or the school board, as far as the calendar is concerned.
So which line are you on?
Yeah.
Page 1,
Yep.
after the first paragraph of town/school budgets.
Yep.
Skip, what's your second one?
Never mind. I'm good with just that for right now.
Okay.
I was trying to think of what the second one is, and now I can't. It seems to be par for the course at times.
Anybody else? Seeing none, with the corrections made to the minutes, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Hold it.
There's been no motion.
Oh, there's been no motion. Is there a motion to accept the minutes as corrected? Moved by Sue.
Seconded by
Tracy. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The ayes have it.
abstentions.
And 2 abstentions, I'm sorry. Seeing no people from the public, there will be no public comment. Now, setting the schedule for town and school budgets. We had this long discussion at the last meeting, and I guess I would just like to nail this down so we have a schedule when we get to the budgets in October of what the meeting schedule is. Now I know that Peter and I believe Skip was also agreeing to possibly have a meeting on the 27th of November and on the 8th of November. 8th of January, I'm sorry. And I would just like to know what the budget committee feels. Do they want to change the way this looks? Because we had discussions that the school budget is only 4 meetings, but the town is 7 meetings. And I would like to know how the budget committee feels.
I think the overall concern was, last year we got all jammed up because of the lack of meetings. And I know that I've been pushing to start the budget process as early as possible so we don't get that, because stuff happens, you lose a date here, you lose a date there. Tis better to start early and have time left over than not. As far as going January 8th, and that's the deadline for petition warrants. I mean, if they all came in and we could just sit and take care of those right off the bat, it wouldn't be such a bad deal. But I don't recall that I was advocating for January 8th. It's more of a case of let's start looking at how many meetings we're doing based on the budget size. And then that I totally agree with Peter.
Okay.
Didn't we reach some decisions last meeting on that we were going to try to make it more balanced?
We had some suggestions out there, but I don't think we solidified anything. And I think we need to out of this meeting. And I know some of the hesitation was that the schools and they don't come up with their budget until like the 15th of November. And then we get bunched up in December, which is a busy time for the subcommittee meetings, and we breeze over stuff way too quickly. So I'm suggesting that we have 7 meetings for the town and 4 for if we could shrink the town and bunch that up a little bit more, and squeeze out the 15th for the schools, and then you had suggested, what was the other date?
Well, the 2 dates that I remember is the 27th, which is the Tuesday of the week after Thanksgiving, and the 8th, which is the petition warrant article day.
Point of order. Can you guys hear anything coming out of the speakers by any chance?
I think so. I can hear. Sounds like it.
Okay. Because I know last week I did, but I'm not
Touch your
hearing it now.
microphone.
Oh,
Yeah.
I heard something.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now we can.
This is what?
Angela, the very first meeting on the schedule is October 2, a Tuesday. We don't make the presentation for a whole nother week and 2 days on the 11th. Is it a scheduling issue that we couldn't pick up the meeting on Tuesday the 5th and throw a whole nother meeting in there? Do the presentation a week early?
Do it October 5th, you're saying, between the 2nd and the 11th?
Right, we have our marathon all-day session on the 2nd.
Yes.
Can it be made ready to present 3 days later?
I mean, Scott
Friday
and Glenn
the
aren't
5th.
here to answer that, so I don't want to answer it for
Yeah,
them.
but you do the work.
But no,
So-
I don't, not on
No?
that. No, I
That
do
is
not.
Columbus Day week.
No, that,
You mean the 4th, right?
no, he's talking the 5th, the same week. Have it ready by like Thursday, by that
Yeah.
Thursday.
Yeah, which would be the 4th.
Yeah.
The Thursday's the 4th.
Yeah, 5th is a Friday.
Oh, okay, then the 4th. My math, I'm French, come on. Good idea.
I make calendars.
I mean, I would like to check with them to make sure
Okay.
if it needs to
But
happen, because
this
they're the
time,
ones
we can
that,
discuss it. It's a thought. You can
Yep.
start a whole week early that way and have a whole meeting extra.
if we need if we need an extra one for the town.
It helps the discussion.
I mean, I guess
I think we were talking about fewer meetings for
Yeah.
the town.
Yeah, fewer.
And so that you could have maybe one more school meeting,
Well,
Right.
I think what he's saying is you'd
Yeah.
slide the
so
whole,
like the whole thing up. Okay.
slide the whole thing up into one more day
I
at
see.
the beginning.
Mr. Beitler, and if you could please get to the podium to speak.
I don't want to speak for Mr. Dunn either, but in our office, to have the school board finish a budget on a Tuesday and then present it to the budget committee on a Thursday would be extremely challenging. and that's just on the school side, and I don't want to speak for Mr. Dunn, but that just seems like a very quick turnaround for
I
for
like to
us.
speak for Mr. Dunn, and I have faith in Mr. Dunn.
Mr. McDonough.
The October 18th meeting, I sat on those subcommittees, elected officials, administration, board committee, town clerk, election registrations. Those are a breeze. I mean, that is a place where you can consolidate some other stuff into that meeting if we want to consider that. I think that may end up being a really short night if we just leave those ones there.
So you're saying like move the 15th of November Sunday up?
If you're looking to consolidate some of the towns so you can open up another night to spread out the schools, then I just think that's a good place to start.
That's true.
And what would you recommend we push up in there? Is it the 15th?
Yeah, probably the 15th is the library, Parks and Rec. Not really a lot going on there either.
Right, that's pretty.
That's pretty cut and dry.
Legal is generally something fairly quick too. That's now scheduled for the 25th. That could go into the 18th.
Library's probably the biggest one out of that whole thing.
Yeah.
On the 15th.
Yep.
But if we do that, well, Chris, will the school budget be done by then? If we do the school board budget on the 15th of November, will it be ready?
And defer.
Mr. Weissman?
Mr. Michaelis, sir.
Sorry.
If we
What-
move the 15th of November, move like the library, move the town stuff up,
Yeah.
will the school board have the school budget prepared and everything by the 15th of November?
That would be a challenge for us. Our school board meeting would be on, and our practice has past couple of years doing a public hearing on our budget as well, would be by the 5th of November. And then we would have, traditionally what we've done then is deliver them on the 19th, which would be the 19th, which is the Monday before Thanksgiving.
Deliver that to
To the
Budget.
budget committee, yes, members,
So that's 2 weeks later, exactly.
yes, yep.
Yes, I thought we had discussed it, that 15th, the last meeting would be available for the school board to slide that into another open spot on the 15th. We had talked about that, and I don't remember anybody saying.
When I look back at the notes, I think the notes say the 27th of November, and we could do more than the superintendent's presentation on the 27th of November. We could potentially do default budget and warrant articles on that night also. That's a Tuesday, and then we come back to you on Thursday and do 3 more. I actually put some dates and committees together, if you want to take a look at what I would propose.
Excuse me.
What's up? And we'd be happy to schedule subcommittee meetings now also, if you wanted to get subcommittee meetings scheduled and on a calendar for yourselves as well as for the schools. This would potentially give you 7 meetings with the school, if that's what you're looking to get, is 7 meetings with the schools. The last meeting being that January 8th, and that's just to review any petition warrant articles that come in related to schools.
this just adds the 27th in,
It
correct?
has the 27th in.
Which is a
and-
Tuesday.
Which is a Tuesday, which is if I look back in the notes of the previous budget committee meeting, that's what, I think that was voted on, and, or maybe it wasn't voted on, but talked about.
Well, certainly 7 is far better than 4.
And it provides the 8th too, if there's work to be done on the 8th, I mean, we can certainly be here on the 8th to do work as well. 8th of January, sorry.
That stuff
When did you make this afternoon?
Yes.
You haven't seen it?
No, I understand.
This is what we kind of talked about last week in your absence. We kind of laid some of this out, that we wanted to get more meetings with the schools to kind of balance out the amount of spending.
Sure.
We have a third of the budget we take 6-7 meetings with, and we only have 4 meetings with 2/3 of the budget for the whole enchilada.
I understand.
And one of the things that, you know, both Scott Dunn talked about, we talked about, really is the thing that is challenge is we don't get our health insurance till the 3rd week in October. So in our case, we've had a fluctuation anywhere from a 2% decrease on health insurance up to, I think, 23 to 28%. So we could have the budget done, we get our rates in, and if, I think our health insurance right now is about 3.7 million. So if we get a 23% increase, now we have an $800,000 increase, and basically the school board has to go redo the budget all over. So that's another driving factor between the timing of it, because that can be such a significant amount. And in some years, we have actually gone out to bid on oil in October, depending on the prices. So I guess the concern we have is getting hit with it. So the school board doing all the work through September and October, and then just before we bring it to the budget committee or have our public hearing, we now find out our rates are significantly higher, and we have to start all over again and then get it to the budget committee in time. So, and that's the latest that New Hampshire Municipal Association can give us our rates. So that's a real driving factor for both us, and I know Scott Dunn and Glenn Waring mentioned it the last time. And we have had that big amount of swings. I mean, if we have an $800,000 change, that's people in the program. So try to get that together, that's a challenge for us.
That's the 3rd week of
October.
October.
We usually get it, they usually make a decision around on Wednesday, we usually get it Thursday, Friday of that week.
Chris?
Does anyone have an objection to adding a meeting on Tuesday, the 27th?
No.
No?
Sue, did you have any hand raised?
I did. Scott, are you getting any indication of how the oil and the health insurance are going up? Is it too early? Oil's going up, I know.
We had, at times we bought oil in April, May, and June. March, April, May.
Yeah.
That's just been a good time. We're very lucky that we bought it back in October. At that time, on the Brent oil was selling for $40 a gallon. Right now, it's just under 80.
A barrel.
Barrel. I'm sorry, yeah, a barrel. So barrel, so it's high right now, you know, and given that's the Middle East fracking and all, so we're concerned about that. As far as health insurance, they won't give us any indication because they'll say to us, now, it's just an estimate, and of course we all run with it and say, you know, it's a little bit. Yeah, but oil's going to be a challenge.
Winter fuel oil's going to be a challenge too.
Yes, it will be.
Yes. Yeah, you see the gas pumps, and they're almost $3 a gallon too.
So are we putting in that extra day?
Yeah, I guess we need to make a motion. This would be if we look at just the school board, I'd like to make a motion that we adopt this schedule that was presented by Mr. Beitler to give us 7 possible review days, starting on the 27th and running through the 8th, to adopt that as our budget for the school.
I'll second.
Second. Motion made by Peter, seconded by Sue. Any discussions? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Ayes have it. Now, town, are you going to leave the town as is? Or,
Well, can we still shrink it, this town meeting, you know, to put the 15th into October
we could move
18th?
the 15th up to the 18th. That'd be about the only one I think you could do, because on the rest,
Say that again?
move the 15th up to the 18th.
Off October.
November 15th.
Yeah, November
Okay.
15th. Because the rest, I mean, DPW is so huge. The fire department is big, the police department, I mean. Chris?
Do you want to leave that whole in the 15th? Why wouldn't we just move everything, why don't we just start a week later if we're going to consolidate that? Unless you want to have a vacation in the middle.
Are there any other, like, subcommittee things that take place in there that we have, that aren't in here, so to speak?
Or we just leave it the way it is.
At the risk of being one who said, let's stop compressing, having another day in case things spill over, and they will spill over,
Oh, yeah.
there's no doubt,
If there's another storm.
right? Or storms. You know, doing the easy stuff up front to run through is not a bad idea.
Yeah.
And then, you know, we got caught short last year. Let's not do it again. Having a little bit of a fudge factor time-wise, I think is
So the town isn't bleeding into the school and we're doing
Correct.
2 meetings into one.
Yeah, because again, it comes down to doing all the running around for the subcommittee. It's one thing to talk about the weekly, the regular weekly meeting, but all of these subcommittees have got to get done all at the same time. And when you've got that bleed over, that's no fun.
So are you talking about leaving the 15th as like an alternate day, that we wouldn't plan it, but that it would be an alternate? If
Snow
we
day?
needed it, we'd use it, basically, yeah.
I thought you were going to use it, period.
Well, we may, but I'm saying, you know, at this point, we compress everything, technically, we've got nothing on that, we leave it as an alternate, and, you know, people know to expect that. Just thought.
Either that, or as Chris just said, leave it as is. Leave the town as is.
Yeah, but if we could start earlier in the beginning and get some of those things done, I like that idea personally. So merge the 15th with the 18th and leave the 15th on the books for anything we don't get to, if it spills over or it's a spillover, because it will happen.
Peter?
I think what we just discussed is that second, October 2nd, is that big meeting where they put everything together. And if we start pushing it back, I personally like the way it is right now. And as long as we're disciplined and we make sure the town is done by the 15th. And then we, you know, last year we got muddled up and we're doing two things at once, and it really, you know, we could have a clear cutoff that says the 15th we're done with the town. And if we need to space it out, personally, I like the way it is right now, starting on the 11th. If that's the earliest date you can.
Yeah, that would be.
Yeah. Scott's not here.
No, Scott's not here. But that's what I would recommend too. So start on the 11th and leave the town as it is.
And what were we going to do on October 5th? Was that just a spacer?
I don't think we got anything on the 5th.
We don't have
Discussed it.
No,
That
that
was
was just my
discussed.
That was-
suggestion, so you don't have to do it.
Is there anything under November 15th, a couple of those that should be moved up? I haven't done this before, so I don't know which ones are really going to be the time takers.
Well, there's probably, what's going to probably happen is that some of the November 8th stuff the November 1st and 8th is going to slide down.
So should we lean out a little of the 15th right now and put it up at October 18th? Like say, take the library and put that up at the 18th, would that help anything? Alleviate any of that November stress?
I mean, before we were just talking about how we're going to blow through the 18th and no problem, and that the 15th was also that same issue. I don't know why we don't consolidate it, frankly.
Yeah, I'm looking at other culture, other governments, perhaps the ice rink. Those are the easy ones that you could stuff back into October 18th.
Problem with doing the ice rink on, you got, if you're gonna do DPW, if you're gonna do the public Parks and Rec, you gotta do one or the, you gotta do them both at the same time.
Well, last year it became controversial only because of the rust that was discovered up in the roof, as well as the slush fund for Parks and Rec had grown from what was supposed to be a year-to-year kind of deal to help out, grew into $108,000. And now part of that is going to go away because it was supposed to be allocated for the truck, which, I don't know, Rags, was the truck bought?
I believe it was.
Okay, well, so that takes part of that fund down. But that was a major point of contention during our regular, during the subcommittee as well as during the regular meeting. And if that fund that revolving fund continues to drop down, then that makes the ice rink pretty much go away with Parks and Rec.
Didn't we have a suggestion that we're going to evaluate the overhead support structure? There's a lot of rust, and I don't know if that's been undertaken or there's an estimate on that yet. Or,
Tim, you and I did that subcommittee, didn't we?
yeah.
We did talk about it. I don't know if we haven't actually put anything to it there.
All right.
on
So
that
you'll
meeting.
find out this year.
Well, it's just an issue. If there's extra money, then there's.
So maybe we should find that out earlier.
I
Push
guess
that up.
the reason I'm saying it the way I said it was because if you're gonna, I don't want Herb to come on the 18th and then have to come back on the 15th.
I understand that, but also I'm looking at the bigger picture and saying, if we can take the easy stuff and get it done out of the way, the quick stuff, which normally has been quick. The ice rink wasn't last year because of the revolving fund.
But usually it is.
It usually is.
And usually Parks and Rec is too.
Mostly. But I also look at the other culture, other governments, that's much faster too than Parks and Rec. You don't want to move everything.
So would you suggest leaving library and special warrant articles down there, and it could also be the overflow?
I would.
I think that's a good idea. I'm with you on getting the easy things up done. Take them off the plate.
Mr. McDonough.
Who speaks to other culture and other governments as far as the department head?
That's just one.
It's the heck out of me.
Other
I can't
culture
remember.
is
That's Old Home Day.
that Old Home Day or is that Memorial Day?
Memorial Day parade.
It's a combination.
Yeah, so that's a Herb thing.
And other governments are,
That's the outside agency.
I believe so. No. I wish I had my budget book.
I
I
can't
think
remember.
it is the outside agencies.
I think it is the outside agencies.
Which last
Which
year
would
none of
be-
them showed up.
Yeah.
I just want to be considerate to the department heads.
Oh, God, yeah. Yeah.
So I don't want to split up their things over 3 nights. You know what I mean?
No, that's what. But if we could move it up, then. So is there a motion? Do I hear a motion?
I will make a motion that we move other culture, other governments, and the ice rink from November 15th back to October 18th.
And Parks and Rec?
Would you do Parks and Rec in that too, so that way Herb doesn't have to come back twice?
Right.
Okay, well, it will be a longish night for October 18th if we run into a snag and something else. The big deal and what's on the 18th right now will be the town tax collection and the admin.
All right, so second.
Motion made by Skip, seconded by Kristen. Any discussions?
Okay, hang on a second. We're moving Parks and Rec.
Ice rink, other
Ice rink.
culture, and other governments to the 18th of October. We're voting on that now.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so he only has to come once, that year?
Correct.
Correct.
That means we have a lot of subcommittees to do right off the bat.
Bingo.
Throw us in the fire.
Nothing wrong with
All
that.
right.
Okay. Motion has been made, no discussions. All those in favor of Skip's motion, please signify by raising your hand. All opposed, none. Motion carries. Anything else with the timeline?
I guess we haven't even formed or haven't assigned anybody to the CIP committee. You just said that we're going to
That's you.
have that in September. So, no, well, if anybody else wants to
If anybody else wants to join you, go ahead.
sign on with the CIP committee, so we can just kind of have a look. CIP will look at the proposed capital improvement projects that will be in this proposed coming fiscal year, but it also looks out into the out years a little bit, and some of the other projects which might be nebulous. And I would just say one of them is the possible location of a new DPW facility across the street here. That's sort of, it's in the works maybe. But we should all, be aware that it's just an issue that's being talked about.
If you want some help, Tim, just let me know.
All right, sure. I can be there by myself. Other people might be interested, that's all.
When does that meeting occur?
It's usually second, third week in September.
I think Larry will be as chairman, so we'll call the meeting. Okay, anything else with the time warning? Here, none.
I do have a question for Rex.
Go ahead.
Is there any discussion about looking for more land for another cemetery?
And that would come from the cemetery committee, and they haven't broached it with us.
Okay.
But I am learning that various committees do things and don't tell us anything, so.
We should ask that at the
Take for instance the rust at the ice rink, first time I hear it.
But I thought maybe might be under the selectmen's purview to be looking into that, no?
It hasn't been brought to our attention, so we haven't looked into it. We do own the land across the street for a future DPW, but we're not pushing it.
We're just going to be no way for you when the time comes in.
For what it's worth, part of the problem over there, they talked about, part of the problem is they talked about a columbarium over there for some time and have done nothing about it. And that's hurting admissions into the cemetery because people want a columbarium. So I don't know what the issue is.
I'm not crazy about that, but whatever.
Okay. Any other issues that come before the committee? And
Yes.
before you say what you're going to say, if you don't mind me asking Mr. Selectman, what is the latest with the recycling center?
Okay.
Sorry, Skip.
No, that's all right. I don't mind. The one bidder came in overbid. So we had quite a discussion, because I got to tell you, I'm quite fed up that people voted this money a long time ago. And all we've done out there, all the work so far has been done by DPW, getting rid of that hill. There's 22 test bores have been done, which came back fine. That's the only amount of work that's been done out there. So as you can imagine, I'm kind of livid about that. But anyway, it is moving forward. The problem was we don't have enough money. So we had quite a few discussions to see what we could take off of that we could do ourselves. We looked into being the general contractor. But we started to get into a lot of problems with that and decided to just go with Meridian Construction of Guilford. We need $400,000 more to complete the project, and that's as is. We didn't cut out the stuff that we wanted. We didn't shrink the project because that turns to crap over time. We're going to put the $400,000 as a warrant article, and it's going to come from the fund balance. The fund balance is over $6 million, and not fond of it. But having said that, the original bid for was $1.7 million. We're still doing it for around 1.2 or 1.3. So the way I'm looking at it, we're still saving $500,000, and we're getting everything we wanted at the very beginning. So, and to be honest with you, if you read everything that's been in the paper lately about recycling, there was another article in today's Sun. China is refusing to take recyclables. We're going to be way ahead of the curve on this, because part of the problem is China's not taking mixed stream recyclables. There's still a market for separated stuff, which is what we're going to be doing once this building is finished. There's still a market, and we keep hearing about glass. That does not matter to us. We're going to take the glass, we're going to crush it, and add it to material that you see down the hill. In fact, that we may be able to get a crusher for free if we become a regional glass recycling intake for glass from several towns in the area. They would bring us their glass, and we would crush it up and get the glass crusher for free. We would get 1,000 tons at a time, and I asked, how long does it take to get 1,000 tons? They said at least a year or more. So it's not like it's going to be coming in by massive truckloads on a daily basis. We're still going to plan on marketing the recyclables that people will bring in. We won't do mixed stream anymore because it doesn't work. 70% ends up in the landfill. We pay twice as much to get rid of mixed stream as we do household garbage. So we do want to continue it as planned, so it has everything we want. There's any growth in the town will be able to be absorbed because the building's big enough. And we're going to compact everything that we can and sell it on the open market.
The problem is, Rags, China's, even as we speak, is starting to cram down the list of stuff that they're willing to take. Nobody else is willing to take, period. And Europe is in far more of a bind than what we are as far as recyclables are concerned. In about another year, there will be an extremely small, I mean really, really small market for recyclables, to the point where it may not make sense to be doing that project. If the idea is, well, we'll at least break even, I don't think we will, because there will be no place to shove it except in a landfill. It's just the way it is. So.
But that's largely plastic. There's still a market for tin, aluminum, cardboard, fiber paper. The plastic is an issue.
Yeah,
no question about it. But if we're separating out from all the other stuff, one of the things they talked about in the paper is that there's going to start to be businesses opening up to take these things in this country and recycle them.
Yeah, well, I look at the market. I look at the market. If it's all going to China and that move to domestic hasn't already happened, it may not happen. A lot of this, I think, is just greenwashing at this point. People talk a lot about corporate recycling. It's not happening as much as one might think.
But I think we're serving, believe me, I'm not an environmentalist, but everything we can keep out of a landfill, I think it's worth doing. And again, I think we're going to be ahead of the curve on this deal.
Has anybody done any updated numbers?
No. As far as what, the cost?
Not just the cost, but the ongoing cash flow.
I can get that for you. Mike Donovan has done a superb job out there.
Okay.
And he can get those.
If we can turn even to break even, that'd be kind of okay. But to be spending a whole lot of money just to be losing even more money doesn't make sense.
But eventually we will be recycling. It's got to happen. and they're planning ahead. Maybe you're gonna have some short-term bump, but in the long run, I think it's gonna be a really wise decision what they're doing. Because recycling is gonna be a fact of life, and we should plan on it now. They've already started it. I think they have a good plan.
Well, and if you come out there with your household trash, if you separate out your recyclable products, we'll take your household trash for free. If you don't, you come there, you gotta pay to get rid of it.
Yep.
So there's a cost savings there.
It's a good plan.
And we're gonna be taking demo, everything you do at Laconia, we'll do here. We're gonna take demo and stuff like that, and you'll pay to get rid of it.
Right.
And the week-long, 9-day-long cleanup, we're gonna reduce that to a single weekend. Because people will be able to come around. And I gotta tell you, again, Mike Donovan, anything comes in with a cord, he cuts it off, because I don't know what his latest numbers are, but the last time I knew, everything in the metal pile is considered white metal. It's mixed, so it's the cheapest, 5 cents a pound. He cuts the cords off, throws them in a barrel. When he turns it in, he gets 68 cents a pound. The screener he got out there, he made a deal. He swung a deal to get that thing for free. And normally he rents it for a week for $3,000. He screens as much as he can in that week's time. He keeps the loader going and screens every bit of compost he can. Then he sells the compost to local contractors, and we do it because we're not competing with anybody local. He sells to local contractors who pay per yard, and it pays for the rent, the screener, so it doesn't cost the taxpayer anything. And then the rest of the year, taxpayers get all the screen compost they want for free. And you get nothing but praise. There's people out there every day filling their cars full of it, and they love the stuff. It's so much so we had to put a limit. I think you can only take, 5 yards a month or something like that. But he got the screener for free this year. So whatever he sold to the contractors, if he did, that's free and clear. And he's done a lot out there to save money and make money. So.
You mentioned the glass crusher would be free. How's that going to be free?
If we choose, and we haven't done this yet, we need to look into it. If we became a regional collection point for, I don't know how big the radius is around Guilford, but other places that are separating out their glass, when they get enough, they could bring it here, we would crush it. And then it would be mixed in with material for substrata for town projects on roads and whatnot. And the hope is if we had enough, it may be saleable as crushed glass to either an industry or sand or gravel places that want to bulk up what they're doing. So
that's a future project, though.
Yeah.
The glass.
Yeah. In the interim, we're going to have it out there shortly. There'll be a bin strictly for glass. We're going to start separating it out now.
Too bad there wasn't a plastic crusher.
Well, we'll have that eventually.
Yeah.
When we build a new building, we'll have a baler, and we can bale cardboard, tin, aluminum, paper, and plastic separately. And I got to tell you, we saved almost $10,000 by, you notice you go out there, you pull the cardboard out. Right now, we give that cardboard for free to the trash hauler. They take it and sell it. But by giving it to them, we're doing fewer hauls on the 20-yarders. They fill up less often, and there's less weight in there. So we save the $10,000 per haul and per ton by separating it. Now, once we build our own thing with our own baler, we'll keep the cardboard, bale it, and turn around and sell it on the open market. Actually, it's done through the Northeast Regional Recycling Association. We're members, and they do it for you. They wait till the time is right, and they tell you when the best time in the market is, and then they put your product on the market, and you can sell it.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Did I answer your question?
Yes, you did.
Skip, I know there's concerns. I have them too, but I think we're in a transition, and I think we're ahead of the curve, ultimately.
Well, none of us has a fortune-telling ball. We don't know. I've listened to a lot of stuff. Oh, this will happen. This will happen. Listening to it for 50 years, and it never happens.
Well, if I had a crystal ball, I'd pick and choose what meetings I attended.
There you go. There you go.
Go ahead.
Okay, this is going back to last week, and
Last month.
last meeting, how about that? And there was a section during the meeting that really concerns me when I watched it, the whole meeting. And what I did was create a small little transcript of it, which I've just passed out. I've also posted that snippet of video out on granitrock.com. It's also out on the LRPA folks put it out on YouTube as well, so you can see the entire meeting. And I urge that if you miss a little bit, that's a good place to go to get it back. But the part that really disturbed me, because it really comes down to a couple of different things, and after watching politics intently for 10 years, there's generally people who want to get something done. There are other people who want to just be somebody. But after rereading the transcript and watching the video a couple of times, there's a third option. And what I'm getting to is a lot of last meeting we spent time talking about the narratives, about that they are very large in some cases with a lot of money, and trying to put those into line items, GL accounts, so that we could do the A to B comparisons. I'm not going to rehash that all over again.
Because it didn't pass.
I know.
And
But
Joe is not here, and this is about Joe.
no, it's not just about
Perhaps we should
Joe.
wait until a meeting when Joe is here.
No, I would rather discuss it now instead of letting it sit. Because Sean also agreed with Joe, and that gives me rise for concern. I understand that Joe Wernick hasn't been a part of the Budget Committee, may not know everything that goes on. But when Sean says that's micromanagement, about going over the GL account numbers, that's our purpose. And if that is, and I'm going to ask you, Sean, if that's your view, or I should ask better without predisposition, what do you see the role of the Budget Committee being if we don't discuss and manage the GL accounts?
I guess, Skip,
Because if we're not doing anything at the GL account level, this whole process is a farce and a big waste of time.
I don't see it that way. But when I see, sorry, I'm just,
No, take your time.
no, I'm trying to think of how to say it without, and I just don't know how to answer that without, I guess my problem is this, Skip. I understand what you are saying in a way, but when I take a look at the role of this committee, I just don't see this committee telling this gentleman and his board and that gentleman and his board what to do. That is not our role. If we bring stuff up and ideas, that's one thing. But when we tell the school board and the Board of Selectmen what to do, that is not the role of this committee. And that is what I meant.
Then what is the role of this committee? We're supposed to be responsible for the town folks' tax monies. If we're not going to change anything, what is the role of the Budget Committee?
Excuse me, I don't believe you ever said we weren't going to change anything. We're going to look at things. It was more a question of how things were presented than anything.
No, there was also...
We should not be micromanaging. The managers, the people that actually create the budgets, that we oversee them, we make sure they're valid and they're right for the town. We're overseeing what they've done. We're not managing the whole town. There's a big difference there.
My feeling is that we are all taxpayers on this board. And we, in a sense, represent all the taxpayers. And even if one taxpayer, whether he's on this board or not, wants to know those details, I believe that they have a right to know those details. And they need to be, if they want to see them in a certain format, the town manager or the superintendent should be able to provide that for them. It's not a necessary micromanagement. We're not telling them what to do. We just want to see it in a certain format.
I was referring to the fact that they keep referring to this micromanaging, and really, I think we have to know what's going on, yes. But the people who are managing the budgets are the ones presenting them to us, and then we are.
But we as taxpayers, all of us, have a right to see it the way it's comfortable for us.
Nothing should be hidden. Within reason, yeah. I mean, it's got to be there. It's got to be complete.
And if somebody is asking for line items or some sort of a limit of what can be dumped into those buckets, or how big is that? You know, we got into all that minutia last week or last month. We just like to have some sort of a way to understand what's there from year to year so we can have a track record.
Kristen.
So we discussed this a month ago, we voted, it was decided. Are you trying to reopen what has already been decided?
No, I'm not.
Okay.
I'm trying to bring up a different point, which I think everybody has missed.
Okay, could you say it again, please?
My question to Sean is, if we are not going to manage the tax monies, what are we doing? Now, what Joe said, and here I tried to get the transcript as close as I could. His example was to talk about athletic uniforms. It could be another police car. It could be a fire engine. It could be a DPW truck. If the people, I see the role of this budget committee is to say, we need to be good stewards of the tax monies to which we've been entrusted, because it isn't the school board or the selectmen that are presenting the budget to be voted upon. It's us. That is our responsibility. And when I hear that we shouldn't change a GL line item because that's micromanagement, but if I believe that buying that additional vehicle or doing this other thing, or we as a whole budget committee decide that's not a good use of the money at this time, that is our proper role. But to be saying that we shouldn't be looking at those GL accounts and touching them because they've already gone through several different layers. Well, unfortunately, government isn't efficient. In fact, it's set up to be inefficient when you really look at it, because we're yet another level. But we're the folks that present it to the town folk. And if we're just going to pass it through, all we've become is a rubber stamp. And I don't think that's our role or our responsibility.
Chris, did you want to say something?
No. No, go ahead.
I think you've picked out 30 seconds of a 2-hour meeting. You've bolded certain statements that were not said in a loud fashion, and they looked like they were said in a loud fashion.
They were.
This was a much longer discussion. There's one statement about micromanagement in a 2-hour discussion. And I don't think that that's a fair microcosm of what the entire discussion was.
You're right. Most of the discussion I was trying to bring up was about the transparency and the GL items. I was never the one who brought up the word micromanagement. It was brought up, and it was a very small amount of time. But where Sean agreed with Joe, it gives me concern, because if that is the modus operandi that's going to be followed during this budget season, that basically, okay, we talked about it, that's the end of it at the subcommittee and at the full committee level, and we do nothing about it, then we're all wasting our time. If the fence has already been erected without doing what most of us might see as being something to be done, and again, we have to vote on stuff. Why I brought this up is that if we are predisposed to do nothing about either budget, then we are failing the voters that put us on this committee.
I don't think saying micromanagement says we're predisposed to do nothing. I think that is incorrect.
I think that statement set a tone for the rest of the discussion. And that statement could flow, if we don't hash it out right here,
Then
it could
if
flow,
you-
like as Skip says, become a rubber stamp.
If the person who said that is the issue, then perhaps this should be discussed when that person is able to be here and is not at a graduation for a school that he works at.
Skip, you had set the tone on that,
Yep.
just by agreeing with him.
And
So-
I just get, I don't see us as a rubber stamp. I never have.
No.
But I also don't see us telling these two gentlemen and their boards and all the other department heads how to do it. And
Well, how do you rectify the two then, Sean? How do you reconcile both of those statements?
May I, Mr. Chair? I wasn't here last year, and I can't speak for the school, I can only speak for the town side. But this board does a good job, regardless of how they get or arrive at the end result. This board does a good job, of this committee, judged by the fact that when it was a warrant article, it was overwhelmingly kept here. And I gotta tell you, it'd be different if you guys got the budgets directly from the department heads. But the department heads are given marching orders by Scott Dunn. So they're already kind of cutting it a little bit as it is. Scott gets a hold of it, he does his thing to it, and we get a hold of it, and we do our thing to it. By the time you get it, you're getting I don't want to say the leanest possible budget, but you're getting a budget that's been gone through heavily. And while there may not be a lot of fat on it, in the past you guys have, I've served 2 terms on the board, on this committee, and we always managed to find something that we felt could be cut, and we did. And I think the townspeople appreciate that. How we get there, that may be different, but I think, I don't want to say it's a thankless job, because I'm learning a lot about the people that serve on town committees. We couldn't live without it.
Yeah. And there's been times when this board added money as well. But that meant that we had to change a GL account to do that. And that's all I'm trying to get across. There may be times during this budget season we may want to add. I remember the fire, not the fire truck, but oh gosh, I'm missing the way back when the forestry truck for the fire department. It needed to be done. Some stuff was done to it. More money was added to the budget, so we changed the GL account. There's been other times we have subtracted from a GL account. But I'm going to agree with Peter, and he probably put it better than I did. It set a tone, Sean, that you basically said, we're not going to touch the GL accounts. And that concerns me, and that's all I'm trying to get across.
no, that's fine, and I don't want it to come across like that.
Just a question for Mr. Murphy.
Yes.
Mr. Chair. Just how many accounts do you want to go that deeply into? All of them, or just a handful, or what? Because I mean, I agree with Peter, but you got a right to know.
Well, we review all of the GL accounts, every single one. Either when you're sitting on a subcommittee, or we're doing it here. I like to play with the data, and I do all of them all the time. I'm trying to shuffle them back and forth. I don't expect anybody else to do that, but there's been times when I've caught stuff going, this isn't right, and I brought it up and things got changed. Not all the time, but I want to make sure that a firewall isn't being put up that says, okay, you get to look at it, and that's it. That's not the correct way to do this.
In the end, we have to vote on these issues, and they show up on the ballot, and the voters, many of them, look at our vote, and if they're leaning one way or the other, they might decide, well, maybe that is more fair to approve that than I'm leaning towards, because the budget committee's already, had a look at it. And then there's the other issues where we've had the past, we need a police impound lot. I don't argue that we don't need it, but when we find it placed in the town budget instead of the police budget, well, we want to change that. We want to have that in the proper space and in the proper budget so that it doesn't look like the town is absorbing something like that versus the police department having a larger overtime budget or something, and then, but at the bottom line, that looks okay because the impound lot isn't included in their budget. We moved it. This is our job, is to examine these lines, items, and give the voters guidance.
Well said.
Anything else? Good.
So, in essence, when you said micromanagement, you did not mean then we won't be changing GL accounts if necessary. Okay?
Mr. McDonough.
By changing GL, you mean the amounts that are in the GL accounts, what you're talking about? The ones we go through line by line?
Yeah.
Is that what you're talking
And because that's what we're supposed to be doing. According by the RSAs, if we see something that's wrong, we have the power and the responsibility, more the responsibility than the power from my standpoint, to make changes in the best interest of the town and the school board, regardless of how the budgets that were prepared were given to us. It doesn't matter how many layers it's already gone through. Our layer is the one that's presented to the town folk. So we need to do the best that we can given what we've been given and what we believe to be the best thing to do or suboptimal things to do.
Well, we've done that for the last 3 years I've been on this budget committee, so I mean, I don't see that changing.
Well, I hope not, but again, when I listened during the meeting and then when I played the video back, it caught my eye and I felt that it was the right thing to do to bring it in front of the rest of the board to make sure, or the committee rather, to make sure that we are all in agreement of what it is the proper role of the budget committee is. Because it wasn't clear from that. And unfortunately, one of my favorite questions is, what is the proper role of government? And you can take that at whatever level of government you want, but unless you are in agreement of that, bad things happen.
Well, perhaps then you might have cited RSA instead of put this verbal together, because this seems like an attack of some sorts. And I wasn't here, so I apologize. I was not here. I was unable to make it. I think that if we stick to the things that are RSA related, what is the description of what we are here for and what it is to do, I think we all agree that our role here in the budget committee and getting it from the heads to us, knowing that it's already gone through certain layers, and yes, we're the final stop before it gets out there. I think that we all know that it is our job, and to call out terms I don't think is necessarily the right way. We need to do our job. We need to do a job for the taxpayers that are here, and we got to do it together. And we need to feel comfortable with each other. We're all under the subcommittees together, so I think we really need to work well together on this and agree that we're here to follow the RSA laws and help the town of Guilford.
Yeah. I don't know the exact clause off the top of my head, but the general RSA is RSA 32 that governs the budget committee.
Right.
Anything else? Seeing none and seeing that.
One other thing.
Okay.
Angela, are you going to make the
Changes?
necessary changes?
Yep,
to,
we'll distribute it.
This format is nice.
Yes.
And if we could get the school piece in there and move those up,
Yes.
great.
Yep, absolutely.
If you're finishing the meeting, I'd like to congratulate Guilford High School graduating seniors last week. Their graduation was really nice. I think the budget committee would support that the kids did a great job.
And Karen, you're the only member of the public. Any comment? Hearing none. Is there a motion to adjourn? Seconded. Seconded by Jack. All those in favor say aye.
Croc TV.